Welcome to week 1 of the Essentials Practice. I think we all know what it's like to be lost. I have a terrible sense of direction. I get lost all the time. Like when I was really young, I got lost in the grocery store and couldn't find my mom. I remember retracing my steps and going down every aisle. I was scared that I wouldn't find her. And my fears only got worse the longer I was lost. And when I finally saw my mom, I was so relieved that I ran over, grabbed her leg, and wouldn't let go. The problem was the woman I was holding on to wasn't my mom. I looked up to see a face that I didn't recognize. And the same thing can happen in a relationship with God. We can mistake God for someone or something else. There's a story in the book of Exodus just after God saved the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And they're in the wilderness as freed slaves for the first time. Imagine how freeing that would feel. Imagine that all you knew was being a slave and now you're free camping in the wilderness. Camping is freeing enough, but camping as a freed slave would be liberating. You're in the open wild with no one ruling over you. I can almost hear the songs of liberation being sung around the campfire that night. It would be electric. And there around the fire, Moses' brother Aaron comes and shows everyone the things he's been working on. A golden calf. Aaron shows the crowd this golden calf and says, "Behold the gods who brought us out of slavery in Egypt." I imagine the crowd thinking, a cow? Really? You're telling us a cow broke us out of slavery? I used to work on a dairy farm in high school, and I can tell you there is no way a cow could take on the most powerful empire of the ancient world. There's no way. And the wildest part of the story is they got up the next morning and threw a festival for this golden cow. It's wild, it's irrational, and yet it's our human tendency to confuse God for something else. This is why God says in Psalm 50, verse 21, "You thought I was exactly like you." The human tendency is to confuse God with something or someone else. So who is God? And what is he really like? Well, a good place to start is where the Bible starts, in the beginning. In Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." What we learn is that God is the creator of everything. He made our world, our universe, and everything in it. This also means that God existed before he made anything. He is the eternal, ever-existing God. He always was and always will be. He just is. Now, if you think about it, this sounds lonely. God was before everything else. This means that there was a time where God was alone, a time where only he existed. The very next verse says, "The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Who is the Spirit of God? And is he the same person as God the Father? Well, all throughout the Bible, there are distinct references to the Spirit being a different person from the Father. And then in the Gospel of John, we read these words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." This is almost a direct quote from Genesis 1, but instead of saying, "In the beginning, God," John writes, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And when John talks about the Word, he's talking about Jesus, which is why later in verse 14, he says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father." John is suggesting that the God who created the world in Genesis 1:1 is 3 persons. He is Father and Son and Holy Spirit. And this is a wild concept to get. It's called the Trinity. And it means triunity, one God in 3 persons. The Father is God, the Son is God, and the Spirit is God. They are 3 persons in one God. And if this is hard to wrap your mind around, welcome to the club. Theologians have been trying to think about this and write about this for the last 2,000 years. But what's important to get is that God was not lonely. There was a time when only he existed, but God has always existed in community. God has always been in a relationship of love between Father, Son, and Spirit. See, at the center of the universe is a relationship of love. This is who God is. And yet the God who is never lonely, the God who existed in perfect relationship of love, the God who has always existed in community and doesn't need anyone or anything, that God made you. And that God wants a relationship with you. God is a pursuing God. This is one of the main things we learn about God in the Bible. In fact, the Bible is one big story about how God pursues us. He comes after us. He comes seeking and saving us. The Bible teaches us that God is a pursuing God. But we don't just know about God through the Bible. We also know about God because of Jesus. In fact, God is revealed to us most clearly in Jesus. If you want to know who God is and what he's like, look at Jesus. In Jesus, we encounter God as he truly is. Paul writes in Colossians 1:15 and says, the Son is the image of the invisible God. Jesus is God made visible. The author of Hebrews put it this way: the Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. Jesus is the exact representation of who God is and what he's like. So if you want to know who God is and if you want to know what he's like, look at Jesus. Jesus is God, and he shows us exactly what God is like. This is why Jesus said, the one who looks at me is seeing the one who sent me. And he also said, anyone who's seen me has seen the Father. Jesus is God, and he's God made visible. He shows us exactly who God is and what he's like. And in Jesus, we see a God of love, a God who loves sinners like you and me. We see a God who wants to be with us. In Jesus, we see a God who loves to eat with sinners. In Jesus, we see the all-powerful one who heals the sick and raises the dead. And in Jesus, we see that God is willing to die to save us from sin. This is who God is, and this is what he's like. So who is God? He is the eternal one who existed before time began. He is the creator of heaven and earth. He is the triune God of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And what is he like? Well, we see God most clearly in Jesus. This is who God is and what he's like. And one of his closest disciples named John summed up everything he ever learned about God in Jesus with these three words: God is love. How could John sum up everything he knew about God in three simple words? Why was this the ultimate thing he knew to be true about God? Because he saw it in Jesus on the cross. He saw the love of God as Jesus hung there dying to save the ones he loves. He saw the God of creation dying for the ones he made. He saw the all-powerful, eternal God giving his life to save us. On the cross, he saw God, and the God revealed in Jesus is love.